Okay. What's going on, family? What's going on? I'll give you a second to tune in. It's your brother Divine Prospect of Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. I'm going to do a nice little short session with y'all, share some information with y'all about what's been going on with me, as well as some sources for a subject matter I've been looking into recently. It's interesting because I did a somewhat similar lecture back in 2019, but I'm going to do a new one coming up. And it's probably going to be under the natural path to eating, because it deals more with nutrition and diet, and ancient Israelite foodstuffs, right? And then from there, I'm going to do the 3 giveaways that I announced earlier. So 3 people are going to win something before the session is over. This session hopefully should be no more than 30 to 45 minutes, if that. I'm trying to keep it short because I have tons of things to do, especially later on this evening or afternoon going into the evening. And then for the rest of the weekend. All right. So I'm going to give it a second for everybody to come in. So what you can do is hit one if the audio and video is in sync, if it's clear, if you can hear me, if you can see me, hit 1. Again, I'm in a place where the bandwidth is constrained for the internet, and the throughput is not as strong because of my distance from the router, and that's a pretty dated router. Because I'm here in New York at my mom's house. Those of you who tuned in earlier are aware of that, and those who are part of the KHM group, you guys are aware of that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and put you onto a couple of things, and we're gonna get started. All right. In the interim, hold on one second. I want to do something while y'all coming in. Okay, y'all saying everything is good. All right. Somebody also let me know. Are we streaming in 480, 720, or 1080, right? Throw that on the screen real quick. Let me know. All right. All right. 1080. Slow for the God says 1080. Okay, cool. All right. Hold on one second. Hold on, family. Let me see. Right. All right. Hold on. I'm trying to multitask at the same time. Just give me 1 second, y'all. Okay. All right. All right. Y'all saying 1080. You switch it up to 1080. All right, cool. So we good. All right, fam, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up as you're coming in. Hit the thumbs up as you're coming in. It looks crisp from what I can see. When I do my live stream, actually, I'm not going to do no more live streams like this until I get back home in Atlanta. But I was going to say that if I was able to relocate to the other room and just wire it into the router, the quality would be much better. But I think y'all saying this is okay. But from what I can see, show me real time from my camera. It looks amazing. But again, I don't know what you guys are seeing. I want to make sure you guys are getting good quality. Hold on. All right. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and shout out who's here, and let's go on with the session. Whoever is in is in. If you're not here, you're just not here. All right. You just missed it live. But I'm trying to go live early today so that way you guys can kind of see me early during the day, because it's not that often you see me this early during the day going live. A lot of times like maybe late on the afternoon, and most of the time it's in the evening. But I thought it'd be a nice little treat, nice little surprise here. So, oops, I just hit the camera. I think it's good now. All right. So, family, let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, we have the Holistic Synergy shirt right here. This is our Natural Path to Eden program that we have. It's called Natural Path to Eden, but it's called Holistic Synergy, which is the tagline. And it has to do with looking at the entire system, each part, and consider each part, and how when you add the parts together, it produces a much greater effect than the parts by themselves. And that's interesting because I'm gonna pick up on synergy in a second. I've mentioned it several times on this channel, but this plays into what it is that I want to share. Aisha Cole says, "Have you select?" I do what I can. I do what I can. You feel what I'm saying? I mean, there's a community that needs help, and I have to come out here and grind and help the people. So, I mean, even offline, you know, I gotta work with KHM, then I work with people who are in need and things of that nature. So sometimes, I mean, sometimes sleep gotta wait. You know, sometimes it just has to wait. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But thank you for your concern. I appreciate that. But nonetheless, let me go ahead and get started. So some of y'all may be asking Divine, what are you doing in New York? Right? They'd be like, well, I didn't think the New York chapter launch wasn't into March 25th. And if you said that, you're absolutely correct, right? The March event is not into the 26th. Hold on real quick. Let me see. Okay, good. All right. It's not until the 25th. I'll be back here in New York, March 25th, which is a Thursday. We're going to be doing a powwow session regarding the International Decade for People of African Descent. We're going to meet up and have a powwow on that. Friday, we're going to hit downtown, Times Square, and we're going to do a street campaign, interfacing with the people and promoting the event. For Saturday is a formal chapter launch, which I believe is the 27th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me verify that. Yes, and then 28 is the Sunday brunch luncheon, and then the 29th, I'll be flying out, all right? So that's what's going on. But the reason why I am currently here in New York is because my mother's mother passed, right? My grandmother passed, and my grandmother was somebody who was very dear to me. I love my grandmother. Since I moved from New York, I haven't seen her as often because I live in Atlanta and they're here in New York. But my grandmother passed. And, you know, one thing, you know, my grandmother, you know, was a professed Christian, right? But there were things that I learned from my grandmother that I have not learned from nobody else. And I'm gonna share this with you and segue from here to the other parts. And then I'm gonna end off with the giveaway. So make sure you guys stay here until the end of this session so you can be eligible for these giveaways. We're gonna do a giveaway on Patreon. I'm gonna do a post for Patreon, do a giveaway. We're gonna do a giveaway for those of you who have the app, and we're gonna do a giveaway for those of you that are here in the chat. All right. So I'm gonna segue into my grandmother, and then from there, after I speak a little bit on that, I'm gonna give a couple of shout outs and then transition from there. I'm gonna go into the other two things, the thing that I'm currently researching, because I want to give you guys some insight on something I'm currently researching. You know, a lot of stuff I know, some stuff I'm learning as I'm researching currently on the subject matter. And I just want to share you guys where I'm at and kind of give you guys the information, but I already have the sources out, but that way you can follow along. And then we're going to end off with the giveaways, and I'm closing this session. All right. So my grandmother was a very, very special person. So my mother's side of the family is from the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And my grandmother, she moved here, I think when she was a preteen, teenager, if I'm not mistaken. She moved here from St. Thomas. And she came to New York, where I think she was taken care of by an aunt of hers while she was here. And then, you know, my grandmother, you know, when she got into adulthood, she started working. And she worked I think she was doing hospitality at hospitals and stuff like that. And she was always into ministry, right? My grandmother was into ministry. And, you know, when she was like in her 20s, she gave birth to my mother. Loved my mother as well, very dearly. So the reason why, man, there's just so much I can speak about it, but I'm not going to go too much into it. But what I want to share is that when I heard my grandmother pass, I can't say, well, it was kind of sudden. My grandmother, she lived to be almost 95. She'll be 95 this year. You know what I'm saying? She lived a full life. And her life story is incredible. And I don't have time right now to go through all of it. However, I will give a few highlights so you guys can understand why my grandmother was so near and dear to me, and why she's a great example of a Christian, right? For the person professing to be a Christian. And even if we're Israelites, you can learn something from my grandmother as well, which I did. And my grandmother used to work, she cleaned houses, she worked in a hospital, and then she did missionary work, right? Where she would go out to those who was, shut up and closed in, and bring them food and supplies and stuff like that. So when we heard that my grandmother died, it was kind of sudden because we didn't really get anything prior about some kind of health ailments. My grandmother's pretty much in good health, up until the age of 94. She'll be 95 this year. So, she passed over the weekend. She was here at home with my mother on Friday, and she had heart problems, difficulty breathing. More than likely was fluid in the lungs, which is called pleural effusion, if you guys don't know what that is. So anyway, so my brother came, my younger brother, he's a year younger than me. He came and he helped my mother out and get my grandmother up out the door after they called 911. They took her to the hospital. When she was at the hospital, she coded. So they had to, perform CPR, and resuscitate her. And once they brought her back, they had to put her on a ventilator and then give her medication and keep her heart pumping. She coded again when they called in that Saturday, I think Saturday or Sunday. And they was asking my mother and my brother, after they consulted with me, like, hey, should we keep her alive? What you want to do? So while they were, and mind you, because of COVID-19, they could not be there in the hospital right by her door or, where she was at, to kind of monitor the situation. So they had to trust the doctors. But anyway, the second time when they tried to resuscitate her, I don't know who was doing it, but they did it so aggressively that they fractured her ribs and caused internal damage. She pretty much bled out from there, you know what I'm saying? And again, nobody was able to physically be there to kind of monitor what was going on. And, she survived a little bit even after that, and she passed on Sunday, this past Sunday. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, actually, she was alive when I got the message before she passed. She passed on Monday. And I heard about how tragic it was on Sunday. They said she had 24 hours to live, but it may be longer than that. So I said, okay, I got to book a flight. So I booked the earliest flight that I can, the most economical, earliest flight. I don't want to say it's the most economical because I was like, yeah, I'm going to pay whatever it is to get there as soon as I can to go see my grandmother. And I booked the flight for Thursday, which was yesterday. But that was on Sunday, but she passed on Monday. And I was like, man, I missed that. And didn't get a chance to say to my grandmother, I love you, I miss you, anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Which really troubled me because the last time it's crazy. Last time I was in New York was January of 2020. And every time I come here, I speak to my grandmother, ask about family history, ask about some details about her life, some highlights. My grandmother always reads the scriptures. Every time I see her, she's in the book of Psalms, heavy. You know what I'm saying? All the time she's in the book of Psalms and Proverbs. That's another reason why when I was younger, I got put onto the book of Psalms because of my grandmother. You know what I'm saying? There was a deeper significance in the book of Psalms that she probably wasn't aware of. But she would always praise the Most High. Every time I would go to her, she would say, praise the Most High. You know what I'm saying? She would say, hallelujah. My grandmother would tell me that the Most High loves me and don't forget about his unfailing love, and his love surpasses all understanding. And she would say this all the time, consistently, right? I never heard my grandmother curse in my life. I very rarely ever see my grandmother get angry. My grandmother had a stroke back in 92, and then she was living with me and my family from 92. And I moved out the house in the mid 2000s. And then my grandmother stayed with my mother. My mother relocated from the place in which I grew up at. And my mother took care of my grandmother for a long period of time since me and my brother moved out. I would say maybe 15 years. Let me see, 15, 16 years since we moved out. Maybe about 15 years since we moved out. She's been taking care of my grandmother by herself for a long time, and my mother never complained. She just did it, because my grandmother took care of my mother. But let me highlight something that I learned from my grandmother, and I'm going to segue into a message. Shout out to Myron Henderson. Thank you for the donation, and thank you everybody else for your condolences and everything like that. So one thing I learned from my grandmother, and I'll be doing her eulogy, right? Because we was going to do a short viewing, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, nah, I want to honor you know, my grandmother because of who she was. And I want to give a message, you know, if nobody else is willing to do it, I want to give a message. So we're going to live stream this session when I come back to New York. We're going to take care of that. And I have it live streamed. So if you guys are interested, I'll share the link if you guys want to, you know, just show your support. You know what I'm saying? You're not obligated to, but if you want to show your support, you can. And you'll be able to see the message that I give on behalf of my grandmother, which I'm going to share a little bit with you guys right now. So my grandmother was a very exceptional person. Again, maybe it's her humble upbringing, maybe the things she's been into when she was younger. But my grandmother, I'm going to highlight a couple of things. First thing is, while she was raising my mom, my grandmother would give you the clothes off her back. Now, people say that as an idiom. My grandmother literally would do it. There would be times that my mother would come home from school and she wouldn't have no bed. And this is a true story. My mother's here. I don't know if she want to get on camera and she could attest to it. You know what I'm saying? She's with my niece right now, you know, doing remote schoolwork. But my mother would come in the house and there would be no bed. And my mother was like, yo, Mom, where's the bed? She was like, listen, somebody came to me while I was at work. They told me they had no bed. They had no money for a bed. So because we had it, I gave it. And, you know, my mother's like, as a kid, it's like, well, I ain't got no bed. But my grandmother said, but you'll be okay. So my grandmother gave her, you know, some covers to lay on and a pillow. And my grandmother said she'll buy another bed, which she eventually did. But people will come to my grandmother and say, hey, look, you know, they're about to put me at my house. I don't have anything. My grandmother said, okay, look, I just got paid today. Here's my whole paycheck. My grandmother would give somebody their whole paycheck. A stranger she does not know gave them her whole paycheck. I'm like, now, mind you, the stuff my grandmother did, I don't even know if I would be even built to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, she gave paychecks. And I'm not talking about one time. I'm talking about several times she would just get paid that same day and just give it. And then there were times that people had no place to stay. My mother would come home from school. There'd be strangers sleeping on the floor. Didn't know why they were there. Taking showers, you know, in the bathroom, washing up, brushing their teeth. My grandmother would buy them clothes so them would go get interviews and everything like that. And then my grandmother would replace whatever's in the house. But for my mother and her brother, it was a temporary inconvenience. But they didn't understand, like, why is my mother giving everything? And then, you know, a lot of the stuff that my grandmother would do, she would shop at thrift stores. And the reason why she would shop at thrift stores is because she would use that to clothe herself and her children. And any extra money that she would have spent on clothing, she put it aside or allocated for people that had a need. Now, this is truly incredible, the way my grandmother was. I know one time, you know, my grandma was living with us. She was, there was a snowstorm and she was working at a hospital. And when I tell you this, man, this brings tears to my heart. So I'm gonna try to hold back some tears as I kind of tell you how phenomenal my grandmother was, and then segue into the message, right? But anyway, so there was a huge snowstorm. If those of you who live in New York or any northern city, you know snowstorms are crazy. So there was a time where there was a hospital. Mom, I don't know if she came. What hospital was it that?
North Central Bronx.
North Central Bronx. Okay. It was a blizzard outside, right? Okay, you don't have to come on the camera, but Mom, there was times where you came home and there was no bed, right?
Because she gave it away.
She gave your bed away.
Somebody said they liked it. Like, there was no bed, no TV.
No bed, no TV too? And what else did she give? The rug, whatever they wanted. She let them stay in the house too, right? Sleep on the floor and everything. Well, hold on. That's my message. I'm going to bring it up. But go ahead.
And she also said, don't worry, God will provide. We'll get another one.
Don't worry, God will provide. And she did. She wasn't upset about it. She just, so there was a blizzard. You said North Central, right?
Yeah.
You know what year that was?
Like 1990.
This is after she moved in with us?
No. Yeah, she was living
with us, right?
She was visiting.
Oh, visiting.
1983 or 84.
When I was born?
Right, you was born when Stan was born.
Okay, so there was a period of time around the time I was born, or in the 80s, sometime in the 80s, right? When there was a blizzard in New York City, and my grandmother she never took a day off from work, right? Never. My grandmother never took a day off from work. Never took a day off from work. Even if she was sick, she'd still go to work. I don't understand that, but okay. So there was one time there was a blizzard, right? And she would do this even when it was a blizzard, meaning that the city was shut down, okay? And there was like no trains going. I think trains probably was going, but no buses or nothing like that, right? Oh, there was no trains either? All right. My mother said there was no trains, no buses. So check this out. Okay. How many miles is that, Mom? I got to see how many miles of that. But anyway, so the job, and mind you, my grandmother used to come to work every day, right? So one day was a blizzard, and they wasn't really expecting a lot of staff unless you lived close. It was easier for you to go there. My grandmother walked from my house, not my house. Where was she living at? She was visiting. Okay, she was visiting at my house. She walked from my house in the blizzard now all the way to the hospital. When she got there, they said, and I'm not gonna say my grandma's name, but they said, you know, why are you here? Like, because they know how far she lives. You know, she has to drive. You know, the bus was running. She said, because if we don't show up, then who's gonna be here for the patients? Yes, you gotta feed the people. Who's gonna be here to feed that? She was feeding the people, right? She was she worked in the dietary department. Dietary department, where she was doing the food and everything for the patients. Yes. So my grandmother said, if nobody is here, who's gonna feed the patients? Now, what me and my mother is doing is called social memory, right? When you have a collective of individuals that come together to recollect an event that occurred, and the more people that you have, you know, together talking about the event, the more details is remembered. So my grandmother showed up there because she said, "Who's going to feed the people?" And I think she was the only person in her department that was there feeding the people, the patients. I'm like, when I heard this story, now my mother told me this, my grandmother told me the story. When I heard the story, I'm like, what kind of person does something like that? Now I got to think about that. And I got to say to myself, would I have been able to do something like that? She walked in a blizzard. I'm not talking about she got a ride. Nobody went with her. If you see my grandmother, she's like 5 feet, Mom. 4'11". My grandmother's 4'11", very short, very petite person, made it through a blizzard to go to a hospital to feed patients. Because she says, if nobody's here, who's going to feed the patients? She cannot fathom being away from work and thinking that somebody didn't get a meal because of a blizzard. Now, I don't know who does stuff like that anymore. I don't even know if they exist anymore. She's the last of a dying breed. Like I said, my grandmother's 94 years old. When I heard that story, I was like, my grandmother's, I don't understand. The fact that she's willing to give everything, her paychecks, a TV, a bed, to the point where my mother and my uncle were temporarily inconvenienced, you know what I'm saying, gave it away. She would go visit people too, you said, right, Mom? People who were shut in, right, who were sick. Whatever somebody was somewhere, my grandmother was there to go visit them. She never asked for any accolades. She never wanted any recognition. She didn't want to be mentioned for anything like that. She just did it. And that's all she would do with her life. She would work. She had like 2 jobs at one time, right, Mom? No, she had about 5 jobs. She said, my mother said, no, she didn't have to. She had 5 jobs. Days worked in different people's houses. That's what the people who said it. Yeah, so she worked in people's houses. Clean their houses. I don't know. My grandmother just did everything. I just can't fathom. And she walked from down the village all the way to 159th to 8th Avenue. So it was a nice day. She just walked. She walked from the village to 159th Street? Yeah. She said it was a nice day. She said it was a nice day, so she's going to go for a walk. All right, so the reason why I'm bringing this up, you know, and again, if nobody's going to big up my grandmother, I want to, and that's why I told my mother, listen, let me do the eulogy, because I need people to understand how phenomenal my grandmother is. My grandmother never complained. Even my grandmother was sick, she never complained. And she probably was sick for a while and didn't say nothing, because she doesn't say anything. When she's sick, you have to see her in pain or agony and just say, you know, Grandma, are you okay? Because she never complained. She never wanted to be a burden on anybody, because she understood what I tell people. Anytime you're in somebody's home, you have to minimize your carbon footprint. What does that mean? That means that if somebody is hospitable enough to allow you to live in their domain, your objective is to give the least amount of inconvenience as possible to that person. So if you're there, don't complain. If you're there, don't eat up their food. If you're there, don't wear their clothes, don't use their utilities, if you do, replace it. And this is something that my mother taught me, and I learned also from my grandmother, right? So she never complained when she stayed with us. My grandmother kept to herself. She didn't bother nobody, but when you spoke to her, she was always in good spirits. They used to call her praising, because she used to break out and shouting or whatever the case may be, just randomly. And my grandmother, I don't think I've ever heard anything negative from my grandmother. That doesn't mean she didn't think it, she didn't feel it, but she just never, never been, conveyed to me from her. So I say all of this to say that understanding the way that my grandmother was, lets me know 2 things. Number one, that is some huge shoes to fill that I don't even know if I could ever fill in my life. However, with the ministry organization, we can do that. And number 2, I'm going to create a foundation in my grandmother's name to take care of those who can't take care of themselves, because that's what she would have wanted us to do in her memory. right? And even my grandmother could do it now, you know, when she got older, you know, we had to kind of say, grandma, you can't, like, she was getting older and still doing this. I mean, she retired and everything, and she was still going to visit people, didn't charge them nothing, clean house and all of that for nothing. She give people whatever she had. You know, we had to kind of tell her, like, yo, G-Ma, you got to chill. Like you're getting older, in your 70s, 80s, 90s. Like, you can't just be doing all of this. You know what I'm saying? So she kind of took our advice and kind of chill. But if she was alive today and she said, hey, you know, can you go visit this person? My grandmother wouldn't care. She'd be like, all right, as long as you're going to get her there. And if they have a session right here in New York, she'll go there. You know what I'm saying? No complaints, no nothing. Don't ask for compensation or anything. She just will go there and do it. You know what I'm saying? So to be blessed with an ancestor, she's now an ancestor that is venerated. To be blessed with an ancestor to live to be 94 years old that I got to know in my adulthood, you know, those type of shoes is impossible to fill. However, with the foundation that we want to create in her name, I think it'll keep her legacy going, right? And with that, when her my mother's father died, she gave me a scripture. It's like I'd never seen my grandmother mourn. That doesn't mean she didn't do it. I just never seen her mourn or grieve. I never saw it. Okay. When her brother died, never seen her mourn or grieve. When her best friends, my grandmother outlived almost everybody. She outlived children, right? Her son. She outlived her brother. She outlived her spouse. She outlived her best friends. My grandma outlived everybody. You know what I'm saying? The most I kept her until 94 years old. She would be 95 this year if she was still alive, right? So the one thing she said, and I never understood, you know, we come from funerals from people she know who died. She'd get the news that somebody passed. Mom, did you see her grieve when what's her name died in November? Myrtle.
No.
So I never seen my grandmother grieve. You seen her grieve before? My mother said she never seen her grieve. So I asked her, and she told us, I asked her, and I said, Grandma, how come when people pass, I never understood this. How come we never see you outwardly grieve? Now, grieving is not nothing that is unbecoming, because we see it happen in scriptures when somebody dies, they mourn for them, and you're allowed a time of mourning, you know what I'm saying? And maybe she did internally, but when I asked her, she gave me a scripture, and I'm gonna give it to y'all right now, right? So, and again, my grandmother, like I said, she was not beholden to material things. She did not aspire to have a big house, to have a car, to have jewelry and money and fancy things. My grandmother did not care about any of that. Why should she invest in buying that?
She even gave her apartment for people to live that she didn't even know.
Oh, my mother just said she gave her apartment for people to live in for free. Rent free.
Yeah.
And when she had a stroke, you said?
That's
before she had the stroke, she let people live in a house.
Save your money till you get a place.
She told them, save your money till you get a place to live, but you can live in this apartment rent free, utilities free. Just live in this apartment. In the projects, just gave her a place away for free. So to get back to the point that I was going to make was, she wasn't beholden to material things. As in my speaking to her, she said, why should I spend money in that when there's people that have need? Why should you have when there's those around you that don't have? So she lived a very simplistic, minimal life for the sake of other people. I don't know where she got this from. I know she was a very ardent Christian for all her life. What was the name of the denomination, Mom? It was the Philadelphian Church. Philadelphian Church. She said what?
My mother died when she was 3.
Oh, so my grandmother was an orphan. You said her mother died. Okay, come here. You don't have to get in the camera.
No.
Okay, so you said she was an orphan.
Well, her mother died, then her father died. Remember when St. Thomas people took us around? Those adopted people who took her.
The adopted parents.
Yeah.
Okay, so she was adopted. Okay, wait. So she was adopted at the age of 3.
No. Her mother died at 3.
Her mother died when she was 3, and she was adopted. But you said she told me her aunt is the one that got her to America, right?
Yeah, but I gotta call them now. They're still alive.
They're still alive?
I had to tell them.
Who's still alive?
The one that took us up in St. Thomas that time.
But that's not somebody that's older than her.
She's about maybe a couple of years.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Okay.
I gotta look them up.
Okay, don't worry about it. So, okay, wait. So she came to America. How old is she? Like her teenager, right? Yeah, she told me she was a teenager.
Maybe about 16, 17.
16, she came to it, and then she lived where? Where did she go to?
With some aunts in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when did she move to the Bronx? After she had you? When she got married?
She never lived in the Bronx. She
lived in Manhattan. Harlem. Okay, Harlem.
Rango houses on 59th and 8th Avenue.
Rango houses, okay.
When she had a stroke, that's when she came up with me.
Okay, gotcha. So when we asked her, hey, Grandma, why you don't grieve? You know what she said? She said, Job chapter 1 and verse 21, right? Job 1 and 21. So when you're talking about somebody that's living this, she said, watch this. Wayomer arom yasati mi beten imi we arom asub sama Yahweh Natan Yahweh laka yehi shem Yahweh meborach. Right. So and he said, this is Ayub, naked I came from the womb of my mother, and naked I shall return there. Yahweh gave, Yahweh has taken away. Bless, Meborach, blessed be the name Shem of Yahweh, or Yahuwah, whatever you want to say. So my grandmother understood that naked, meaning she came into this world with nothing. And naked, she's going to go back. What is the most important thing after that? It is Shem Yahweh Meborach. Blessed be the name of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. So when you understand this, and I don't know how this was beholden to her, but she understood that, and it's like, okay, what you mean? Naked you came in the world, naked you left, right? Yah gave and Yah took. She said, listen, everybody that you have here is a gift, and it's a temporary gift. You cherish what the Most High has given you, because one day you will not have it anymore. And unless you have good memories to remember them by, then you have not done, meaning, unless you have created good memories with that person while they were alive, then you have not shown respect and you have not cherished the gift that Yah has given you. So she learned that at some point people will be taken away, and that is to show the character of Yah. He gives and he takes. But why does he take after he's given? Because that which is given is a gift, and that which is taken is to receive that gift back unto himself, right? Because he's preparing a place for us. So she understood that. So anything that she had in this earthly realm, she understood it was a gift. People included was a gift. But sometimes we take things for granted. We take people for granted. There was people, and it's very hard. I don't think I remember anybody that disliked my grandmother, right? But even if she had an issue with somebody, she would still do for them. That's why I learned it. Remember, sometimes I tell y'all like this, sometimes there's trolls over the years that I've been dealing with this, and I would deal with them and they would act crazy, but they would hit me up and ask me for something, and I would give it to them because they had a need, like a sincere need. I would give it to them. I learned that from my grandmother. So, in following up with Job 121, I wanted to look into it a little bit more, and I realized in Job chapter 2, verse 10, because some people would see that even though my grandmother, even when she was sick, I never seen her grieve or anything like that. But even when she lost stuff, people would look and say, why would you do something like that? Why would you give somebody a paycheck? Why would you give somebody your beds, your TV? Why would you let people live in your apartment free? And those people did her dirty because they took over that apartment from her. And my grandmother was never able to get that apartment back. But you know what? My grandmother never fought it. She was okay with it. I don't know about me. I would probably wild out, but that's my grandmother, right? But when you go to Job chapter 2, verse 10, it's very interesting. Let me bring it up. Job chapter 2, verse 10, right? Job 2:10 says, Wayomer eleha ke dabir ahat ha nebalot te daberi gam et hatob nekabel me'et ha-Elohim we'et hara lo nekabel bekal zot lo chata Ayob or Eyob bispata. So it says, and he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women speak. What good shall we accept from Yah and not hara, not the adversity? Ra can also mean evil, not the adversity. Shall we not accept this? And it says, and with his lips, Job did not sin. So Lo Chata did not sin. Job with his lips. All right, hold on 1 second, family. I'll be right with y'all. Hold on. So when you see this, the thing is, shall we not accept the good with the bad? See, the Most High deals with balance. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's bring up a scripture. Let's bring up a scripture. All right? Let me bring it up here. I'm going to wrap this up very shortly. All right? So Proverbs chapter 11 verse 1 says, a false balance is an abomination to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, but a just weight is his delight. Well, what do you mean? In times past, things will be weighed with light stones and heavy stones that would be used to weigh things in order to determine the value of something, right? And you have to use light and heavy stones in order to do that, and they were used for different purposes, right? When we go into Proverbs chapter 16 and 11, it says, honest scales and balances are from Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. All the weights in the bag are his concern. What I'll do at another time, I'll go into what that means customarily, right? And again, Manners and Customs is a book that I share with y'all. It's on the Patreon. You can pick it up so you can look into that a little further, right? It says, Proverbs 20:23, unequal weights are detestable to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, and dishonest scales are no good. Proverbs 20:10 says, different weights and unequal measures both are detestable to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Now, why is all of this important? Because it goes back and it leverages Torah, which says in Devarim chapter 25:13, you should not have two different weights in your bag, one heavy and one light. Devarim chapter 25 verse 16, it says, for everyone who behaves dishonestly in regard to these things is detestable to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, your power. Vayikra chapter 19 verse 35 says, you must not use dishonest measures of length, weight, or volume. Vayikra 19:36 says, you shall maintain honest scales and weights, an honest ephah and an honest hin. I am Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, your power, who brought you out of the land of Misraim. The Most High only deals with even and honest scales, which means in order for the scale of life to create a balance in which Yah will see it as acceptable, you must have the good and you must have the bad. You cannot sit and cherish and only understand the good and act like the bad is not there to weigh out that which is good. Because without the bad, you don't know what is good. Without the good, you don't know what's bad. You need these things to be even in order for you to understand the divine plan of the Most High Yah, and to also render you humble because you do not have control over these things. Ultimately, it is by his permission that you are allowed to have good and to have bad. But in order for you to understand the divine plan, you must go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some people only yearn for the good and they don't want the bad. When that happens, they don't not have any situation that can build character, because the bad and the ugly is here to build character, to put you through the test, through a fiery trial, to make sure you come out as pure gold. And once you take the raw gold and you put it in the furnace and you heat it up, the objective is so that the impurities can rise to the surface, so you can continue to move away those impurities so no more impurities are there. And once the impurities are removed away, the gold is taken out. And again, it is not done. It has to be shaped into what it is you want to use it for. And then the gold must be polished so it can reflect the image of the one that crafted it. So unless you go through these things, because the gold itself has value, even in its raw form. But when you purify it so the impurities come out of it by putting it through the fiery furnace, and to remove the impurities, that's why you have to go through it, then he can take you out and he can form you, shape you, and mold you, and then polish you so you can reflect this image. Because that in Genesis chapter 1, the Most High said to the man when he created Adam, he said he made him in his likeness and his image. And the Most High says, now that we're in a world that has been afflicted based on the disobedience of Adam, if we then be obedient to his statutes, laws, and commandments, as we go through these fiery trials, he can remove the impurities out of us and use that to build character, and then shape, form, and fashion us into a tool in which he can use us. And then as a valuable tool, he polishes us so that we can reflect him. Now, when you understand this, this is the significance of what my grandmother knew. I didn't understand this until I came into this truth And I started to see things I never saw before. And then when I saw the life of my grandmother exemplifying everything that is here in Torah without professing to keep Torah, my grandmother kept it without professing to keep it. It is a living example for me today. And that is why I am striving to eulogize my grandmother, because the world must know that a person who don't ask for nothing, that was able to do this, there's no excuse for anybody. There's no excuse for none of us. If we took care of the village this way, nobody would have a need. The scripture says that they will all be of one mind, of one heart, of one soul. They had all things in common. Those who had sold it and gave it to the distributors so they could distribute to those who had a need. So therefore, all needs were met. There was no envy, no jealousy. And then the Most High's power can work through them. Acts chapter 4. Read the last couple of verses. It breaks it down. So she understood something from our youth into adulthood that a lot of us don't realize until we get into our senior age and looking back. So this left an indelible mark on me, her life. And I want the world to know it, because she never asked for that. I never wanted to do that while she was alive, because she shunned it. But now that she's not here, in her honor, her memory, I want to give this back to people who are in need, so that way we can reach all those who have a need and support and honor of what Torah tells us to keep, which is take care of the orphans, take care of the widows, take care of the oppressed, of the poor, and their voice when it cries out. We need to be here to cater to those who have a need, even to the stranger that's amongst us. So my grandmother's a phenomenal person for that. So again, the objective set that is there's no lack within a community. And because we're in a society that teaches you to be selfish, I'm about me and my own, I got to take care of my family. Your family is the village, homie. What is you talking about? Your family is the people in your community. That's your family. You have an immediate family. We understand that. But any surplus you have should be in the belly of your brother, your sister that has a need. Should be on their back. Should be providing a shelter over their head, to giving their needs and providing that opportunity. So a lot of who I am today is because of my grandmother, who left that mark on my mother, who's another phenomenal person who left that mark on me. And I saw this growing up. My mother, you talking about Proverbs 31. My mother is an example of that. My grandmother, even more so. I don't think my mother can fit my grandmother's shoes. My mother is a phenomenal person in her own right. So when I woke up to ministry, I understood that means service. Service is not something easy. And if it was easy, then it ain't servitude. Because what servitude has to do is it has to work on your ego and keep it low, so the spirit can work on you and bring things high. That's how it works. All right? I'm not preaching a sermon to y'all today. I'm giving you scripture. When you have this Torah lifestyle, you not only know what the Spirit said, but you know what it's saying right now. That's for somebody. Y'all will get that. Y'all will get that. But nonetheless, I'm going to go over that, because a lot of us look at Romans chapter 8. And Romans chapter 8 says, and we know that for those who love the Most High, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Now, in Greek, you get to see when it says his, you get to see where that is connected to. So the his goes back to theon, which is all those who love theon, who love the Most High, right? All things work together for good. Interesting. That work there for work, and I use this all the time, is synergai, where we get the word synergy. Synergai is the word synergy. What is synergy? This is from dictionary.com. The interaction of elements that, when combined, produce a total effect that is greater than the sum of the individual elements, contributions, etc. What does that mean? That means good, bad, ugly. These things by themselves, you may think, oh man, that's something serious, whether it's good, bad, ugly. However, when they are combined, the effect that's produced is greater than each individual sum, which means when you have good, it don't mean nothing unless it's coupled with bad and it's coupled with ugly to produce the purpose. See, that's different. Purpose is the thing that navigates you through the storms of life. Purpose is the things that gives you the indelible mark of why you are here. Purpose is the reminder. The word for male is zekar, which means to remember. Remember what? Remember your purpose, man. Why you was created to have dominion over the things of the Most High's hands. So that way, in your purpose, you can navigate through the storms of life. And as you're going through purpose, it brings you through the good, bad, and ugly. Do not rejoice because you have good. Do not always be silent because you have bad. But understand that your purpose moves you through the various cycles of life. And when you don't understand who you are, this is why we stress identity, and you don't have a culture, which is the immune system that protects you from any kind of external pathogen in your environment. And I'm talking about people who are toxic, who are negative, and the environment in which is designed to destroy you as a person behind enemy lines. If you do not have that cultural protection after understanding who you are and couple those two things together to have a clear path to Yah, you will never know why you are here, and you will continue to go after the things that are carnal, that are secular, and that are material, and it will never bring you fulfillment. My grandmother understood her purpose, and because she understood her purpose, all things work together for her good, even to her last age. And I wasn't here, but my brother told me the last thing he heard my grandmother say is hallelujah. While she was struggling, while she couldn't breathe, the last word she says was hallelujah, praise be the Most High. That was the last thing he heard her say. Okay, let me pause for a second. I gotta take a moment because this is getting me emotional right now. Let me stop for a second, man. Let me stop. Let me pause. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'll be right with y'all. Let me just refresh for a second. I'll be right with y'all. All right, y'all. So I wasn't intending to utilize anything right now. However, I just want to share that because, here right now, we're trying to get my grandmother's affairs in order. That's why I'm in New York, so we can get those things together. And in the process, help my mother, this is the grieving time. My mother's been taking care of my grandmother since 92. She's been taking care of my grandmother. That's a long time. That's like, 29 years she was taking care of my grandmother. My grandmother's always been with my mother, even when, my dad left, even when we left, it was just my mother and my grandmother. So my mother right now has a void because my grandmother is not here, and that gave her purpose, right? My mother's purpose was in helping my grandmother, and her purpose was also helping my niece, what she does right now when my sister goes to work. So part of her purpose is gone. However, my mother is a missionary, so she goes and does similar things like my grandmother did, because my grandmother left that mark on my mother. And I don't want my daughters or my children to ever forget my grandmother or my mother, because their legacy must continue to live on in their absence. And that's what the scripture says. It says a good man or prudent man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Sometimes your inheritance is not always money. Sometimes it's the legacy of what you left behind as a person. And we have to strive to leave a legacy behind for our children. I tell people, even if you're poor, the legacy could be the efforts that you made on their behalf and the efforts you made in society to make a difference. Because you're not looking for accolades, you're looking for approval from the divine that has placed you here, so you can understand that that's your purpose. That's extremely important. So I want to share that with y'all. That's why I'm here in New York, all right? I'm not really here to meet up. I have a little bit extra time to do that, but I'm here solely to devote to my family, to get their affairs in order, and to also, again, be able to utilize my grandmother, remember her, and kind of give my mother some peace, some shalom. And that's the important thing, is remind my mother of what your purpose is, Mom. My grandmother was here to remind you of your purpose. When you was taking care of her, That is why the Most High has you here to take care of the people, those who are less fortunate, those who have a need, those who are elderly. And my mother learned that purpose. So as long as she continues to understand that, and we can reiterate that your purpose is not over, even when somebody is gone, that will continue to give them the battery to keep on pushing. All right. So let me transition from that. And thank you everybody in there for your condolences. I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much. But I just wanted to give you an update as to why you haven't seen me as active. Also, y'all know that my son was born last month. So I was kind of busy, kind of transition with that, you know, so I haven't been as active on social media the past 2 months, right? However, when I come back next week, we're going back strong. And then working with KHM, trying to restructure, organize KHM. My KHM family is in there. You already know, you know, working on behind the scenes, getting things in order, getting things together. So I haven't been as active on social media, and I apologize for that. I know, you know what I'm saying? Some people are taking my absence to think that, you know, that, oh yeah, Divine's out the way, so we can move in. And, you know, people think like that. How do I know? Because people that are mutual friends and so they tell me stuff like this. A lot of people want me to marginalize, want me out the way. Because I guess because what we do here is leaving so much of an impact, it's interfering with the things that they're doing. So when they don't see me active, they get happy. You know what I'm saying? They probably hoping something bad happened to me. But you know what? It's not their call. They're not my boss. I don't work for them. They don't take care of me. I'm here to serve the Most High and his people. And as long as the Most High gives me the approval and gives me the enabling power to take care of his people, I'm not going nowhere. And just because you may hear silence, that does not mean I'm inactive. Anytime you hear silence, that means I'm really busy. If you see me here inactive, it's because I took care of business and now I have surplus time to deal with, right? So that is why we're here, what we're here. So now let me transition because I got to go because I got to help out. The second thing is I want to give y'all what I'm researching currently, and I want to give you some resources to look at it real quick, and then I'm going to do the giveaway, and then we're done, okay? So currently what I've been doing with Naturopath to Eden, we have the training that was scheduled actually 2 weeks ago, but because so much has been going on with me, I'm here in New York. We're supposed to do our training yesterday, Thursday, for all of our new consultants. We have about 42, 43 consultants that we are onboarding to send them out to go and help those who have a need, because we provide free assessment and free consultations to those who have health ailments in the community, okay? And it's a program, right? So we wasn't able to do the training yesterday because I had to come to New York, but we're gonna reserve it for next week, right? And then we have 3 training classes, then documentation training, and then call evaluations, and then dispatching, right? So they're actual consultants. We put them through an entire process before they can actually go out there and help people, because we want them to have the tact, the professionalism, and the diplomacy in dealing with the public, to make sure that there's a degree of polish behind everything that we do, because we're moving this way succinctly because society has a wrong perception of who we are, and we are redefining that, okay? So in the process of that, I was doing some research. Now, something I've researched before, and it's in regards to the ancient Israelites, what their diet was and what foodstuffs did they utilize. Now, I've talked about this several times in the past. I have a lecture I did in 2019 where I go into the dietary law. Yeah, go back and check that out. One of my mods can drop it in the chat. However, I was recently looking into the nutrition of the ancient Israelites by examining the foodstuffs that they use in their diet. So there's a couple of books that I'm going to show you guys real quick. I'm going to read a page from each one of these books to interest you in going back in and looking at this thing. It's really deep to kind of understand the environment. Now, this is something that I tell people all the time. Your diet, it should be dependent upon the environment in which you live. It shouldn't be limited to an environment in which you live, but it should be dependent on the environment in which you live. What are you talking about, Divine? So if I live in Georgia, Georgia has foods that grow there naturally from the earth. They have animals that live there. People are omnivores or carnivores, and they have plants, right? Plants in regards to fruits, vegetables, herbs, etc. Wherever you live, there's a particular UV index, right, that comes and penetrates that environment, right, based on other things such as topography, geography, rivers. You know, if you're near an ocean, if there's highland, if there's a desert, whatever the case may be, you should eat the foods that are locally grown from your environment. Why? Because the evolution of man is based on the foods he was able to cultivate and or hunt within his environment, because where he lived was dependent upon the ecosystem of the environment in which he had his domain. So you should always eat foods, not limit your diet, but eat foods based on the environment in which you live. You should always get locally sourced foods because it puts you back in harmony with the place in which you live. Some people will get that. Some people may not get that. But why is this important? Because people say you are what you eat. No, you are based on your environment. So you are a product of your environment. Therefore, if that product that you are is to be an asset and not a liability, then you need to source food from the environment in which you live. Not limited, but you should have in the staple of your diet the foods that are in your environment. That's important. So this goes back to the ancient Israelites and the ecosystem and the environment in which they live, the foods in which they ate that were locally grown for them, even though some foods were imported, but most of the foods they ate as a pastoralist or agriculturalist was based on their trade and based on where they lived. Now, let me show you some references on it. These are deep books. So a lot of times you don't think about diet in ancient Israelite times as something being deep or there'd be a deep element. There's a hugely deep element to investigate when it comes to health. Let me show you some works on this, okay? Let me show you this works, all right? All right, and also the brother Aishiko just mentioned that about gardening. Well, gardening is the soil in the place in which you live was designed for the natural crops that are grown there. A lot of times when you sow foreign seeds into that earth, you change the environment, you change the ecosystem, because there's also insects and animals that help to, and bacteria that help to cultivate the soil in which you're sowing that seed in. They grow there locally and naturally and organically for a reason, because the soil is prepped for the things in which it produces. If you sow too many foreign seeds into that earth, the scripture says, do not mix seeds. If you sow too many foreign seeds in a particular region, then you will disrupt the ecosystem of that soil. So you must keep that in mind, that you must get soil, because you can get imported soil for the different seeds. So let's say, for example, Florida oranges, right? So let's say there's oranges grow locally in Florida, or there's vineyards in California, whatever the case may be, right? Or maybe if I want to grow oranges that are grown in Florida and I got the seed, I need to buy soil from that earth, natural soil, and put it in a greenhouse, put it in a pot, put the soil in there from that location, and then sow the seed in there. You will have a greater yield from that. Okay? All right. So anyway, let's check out these sources. I'm going to get to the giveaway, and we're done for today. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Please hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up. Like I said, I don't want to be here too long, and I'm coming on 1 hour, so I'm almost done. Hit the thumbs up. Check out these sources I want to share with y'all real quick, all right? The first book is called What Did the Ancient Israelites Eat? Diet in Biblical Times. Let me share it on the screen so y'all can see. Give me a second. All right, here it is. Okay. So this is What Did the Ancient Israelites Eat? Diet in Biblical Times by Nathan McDonald. This is an excellent, excellent read, okay? So let me show you something real quick from this book, okay? Let's see. These are some of the table of contents. All right, nutritional deficiencies is where I'm at on this book so far. Let's see. Where's the one I wanted to see? Oh, here we go. Reconstructing the diet, and it gives you the methodology for the reconstruction and the Mediterranean triad: bread, wine, and oil. All right. Matter of fact, it's not this. Let me go back a few pages. Let me see which page is it the one to show. Israelite settlement has continued to the change under human use to the present. Moving further afield, other non-industrial societies potentially provide evidence of societal structure, patterns of exchange, food distribution, and the use and generation of surpluses. Or to select another example, the diet and nutrition of contemporary pastoralists can provide a useful comparison to some sections of Israelite society. Food is a staple in the development of humans, and anybody who's an anthropologist can tell you, and food helped us to evolve. That's important. You know how you know also, if you go back to Better Sheet or the book of Genesis, When Adam was in the Gan or the garden and he's been given everything to eat, when he was put out, now he had to toil to the sweat of his brow with thorns and thistles resisting him in order for him to yield a crop. So he had to transition to an agriculturalist in order to eat food, because as a hunter, well, not really a hunter, but as a gatherer of nuts, berries, fruits, herbs, or whatever that was given to him, now he had to transition his trade in order to survive. He had to toil the earth in order to do so, all right? But it gives you insights into the livelihood. Sometimes societies are built based on their diets. It's deep. Food predisposes you because it's an epigenetic element in your natural environment that can change your disposition and physiology. So when you study the diet of ancient peoples and peoples today, the food is a motivator behind the psychology of that individual. That's important. Even now, culturally, in the realms of culinary arts, a lot of times when you look at indigenous foods, and there was I forgot the name of the show I used to watch on TV, where they would travel everywhere and find out what the locals ate. And your culture determines what is acceptable in regards to diet. However, the objective is so that way there is no nutritional deficiencies within the diet. You have a well-balanced diet that is varied, right? Because you have to have variety in your diet that's in moderation. Things that are moderate, eat things in moderation that is adequate, is able to meet all your nutritional needs, and something that can be adaptive, that you can adapt and find the same nutritional value in other elements if you had to go and live somewhere else. This is extremely important. So this goes into that diet, gives you the methodology for that, and also gives you what those diets are consist of. It goes into the Mediterranean triad of bread, wine, and oil, vegetables, pulses, and fruit, meat, milk, birds, and fish, condiments, and other foods. Then it says how well did the Israelites eat, which is important, modeling the Israelite diet, environment and change, food shortage and famine, the consumption of meat, archaeological evidence, the consumption of meat, anthropological evidence, food distribution, and nutritional deficiency. This is an excellent book. I love it. Let me show you something very interesting that the book pointed out that I never really paid attention to until I started reading this book. Let me show it to you right now. Let me show it to you. Hold on. Let me bring it up real quick. Bring it up real quick. Check this out. Referral chapter 11, verse 10. Let me put it on the screen so y'all can see. And it says, for the land that you are entering to take possession of is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come, where you sowed your seed and irrigated it like a garden of vegetables. But the land that you are going over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water by the rain from heaven, a land that Yod-Heh-Wafe Eloheh cares for. The eyes of Yod-Heh-Wafe Eloheh are always upon it from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And if you will indeed obey my commandments, and I command you today to love Yod-Heh-Wafe Eloheh, to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, he will give the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the later rain, that you may gather in your grain and your wine and your oil, and he will give grass in your fields for your livestock, and you shall eat and be full. Now, this is deep. It is through the consumption of foodstuffs that you have a connection to the deity who is the patron over your ancestral inheritance that has been passed on to you today. Your diet is important because your diet connects you with the divine. If you understand the breadcrumbs that are littered into the text, that gives you the understanding and insight that you must consume the things that was important for helping to design who you are today, and you must be in harmony with it. So in Egypt, they sowed seed and irrigated it, because you understand the geography of Egypt, that Egypt is on a slant where high land is towards the south, low land goes into the Pelusiac, that then breaks out or branches out into the Nile Delta and then empties out into the Mediterranean. But if you go all the way south towards Ethiopia and the Great Lakes, That is the water that goes and it waters down the Nile. And the Nile itself will leave a silt whenever it inundated in the months of July and August. And that inundation, if it was just right, allow the environment to be suitable for you to sow seed and use irrigation, where you divert the water further inland so you can have a much greater surface area in which to sow seed in. So the environment in which they initially sowed seed was more profitable for a garden of vegetables, because that was the environment and the ecosystem, learning the Nile and the things that was there naturally. Now, when you are migrating into another land that I said is flowing with milk and honey, again, that is an idiom, because they did not consume a lot of milk, and there wasn't even a lot of honey available, but some people was able to get it. A lot of commoners wasn't able to, unless you was a pastoralist, but most agriculturalists did not really drink milk. They drank mostly water, right? And sometimes beer that they would make, or wine, which they would drink, right? Sometimes grape juice. But now you're going to a different environment. The topography is different. The geography is different. Now it's a land with hills and valleys. Meant the Central Hill countryside has hills and valleys. It says, which drinks water by rain from heaven. So now it is no longer the Nile that is bringing the sustenance. Now you must rely upon the wintry season. And the wintry season can come in November, late October, November, all the way into March, where it rains. And he says, if you keep my statutes, my laws, and my commandments, I will ensure that you will have the early rains and the latter rains in which you can sow your seed in it. Because horticulture was done in much higher peaks. And then in the lower grounds, you had your cereals, like your wheat and your barley. But you do your horticulture with your vineyards and so forth, your olives, your grapes and so forth in the higher grounds. But in the valleys, you can get your cereals so you can go eat. Also, you had the Jordan River that was there. And then the coastal plains, it was next to or adjacent to the Mediterranean Sea. And then you had these things there, seas that was in there as well, towards the north as well. The environment is different. So the diet which you eat is dependent upon the rains which come from the storehouse of heaven. You know, when you go to, when preachers use Malachi, they say, you know, I'm going to open up the storehouse of heaven. That's just talking about the heavens, the Shemayim realm, in which rain drops down from. And that rain is necessary in order for the crops to be well watered. Now, that is if you keep the statutes, laws, and commands. When you don't get the rains in its season. What I did was I looked at 1,000 years. I think it was 1,000 or 1,500 years. I looked at an index to show the rains and the times that rains came, you know, within the realm of Israel. And I did this back in 2016 when I did my lecture on the calendar. And I realized there was an inconsistency. Inconsistency can go all the way back from the earliest records that we have from the ancient Near Eastern times of Canaanites that lived in that region, and then your Assyrians and Babylonians, the Egyptians that went and took over that region, all the way into the Roman times, where we are looking at indexes to show us about rainfall and the various crops that was there earlier times and that disappeared. And what I'm here to tell you right now, because the people that moved into that area where it's trampled down by the Gentiles, the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then his descendants, when we are repositioned back into the land, that land now gives an inconsistency when it comes to rainfall, and there are certain crops that now is what distinct. Why? Because when the children of Israel was given this land, they were told to let the land rest. If you toil land for too much, you destroy the nutrients and the nitrogen that is in that soil, and therefore it cannot yield. So it is through the obedience of that commandment to do so. And to make your carbon footprint minimal, so that way you do not disturb the atmosphere in which the rain falls, you will consistently get. And that's why the dietary law is there, because the ecosystem of animals and instincts and plants that are in that environment are designed to ensure that the Most High is able to give you a yield when it's season. Okay, so it says a land that Yahweh cares for. What does that mean he cares for? Because the objective is when you keep his statutes, laws, commandments, his eyes, the things that you care about, that you value, your eyes will look upon them. Your eyes will watch over it. You will protect it. You will guard it. But if you put people over it to oversee that which you have, and they don't have any vested interest and do whatever they want, guess what? You're going to take that inheritance from them. His eyes are always upon it from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. And if you will keep his statutes, laws, and commandments, and serve the Most High with your heart, with all your soul, he will give you the rain in your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather the grain, the wine, and the oil. This book goes deep into grain, wine, oil, show you its significance, and shows you the difference in changing or migration that the semi-nomadic pastoralists did. And when they was able to settle, they also started to plant and sow into the earth. And he says that he will give grass in your fields for your livestock. You shall eat and be full. But what the Israelites do, most of them disobeyed that. Now the land is in utter disarray. Now, because of industrialization, the atmosphere has been polluted. Because the overconsumption of the natural foods that are in that area, now you've thrown the entire ecosystem off balance. And now guess what? The Most High is not obliged to give you rain in its season and to yield grass for your livestock. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me give you two other sources, do the giveaway, and we out of here. So the other source I want to show you guys real quick. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Hold on. Let me give you this other book. I wasn't even trying to go in like this, but it's all good. All right, so look, here's the other book right here. All right, this is also on the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. You'll see it scrolling down at the bottom. It's called We Think What We Eat, Neo-Structuralist Analysis of Israelite Food Rules and Other Cultural and Textual Practices by Seth D. Cunnin. All right? Check this out. The one that I was looking at currently was Deciphering a Meal, which is in page 51, right? Let's go to page 51 real quick. Decipher a Meal presents a more wide-ranging discussion of food rules that was presented in Purity and Danger. While a discussion of Israelite food rules largely continues to emphasize the text from Leviticus, her discussion also illustrates the processes underlying food rules through a discussion of stereotypical set of British meals. While we will not examine her specific arguments relating to British patterns of eating, we will examine some of the concepts that either underlie or emerge from her discussion. Professor Douglas opens her argument with a discussion of whether food or food rules is a code, and if so, how can the messages which it encodes be understood? She suggests that the message can be interpreted through relating that code to the system of social relations in which it is embedded. She assumes that ways of categorizing food directly express these social forms. The message is about different degrees of hierarchy, inclusion or exclusion, boundaries and transactions about boundaries. This basis of argumentation is clearly based on a different conceptual model than the Purity and Danger. In this argument, there's no necessary structural basis that leads to categorization. Rather, the pattern arises because the food system in some sense occurs as either a reflection of the social system, perhaps a symbolic justification of the social system. Her premise does reflect some of the language used by structuralist analysis, which seems to give priority to the social structure. So the author that they're referencing here is talking about that the foods that you eat, and again, she references Leviticus, the dietary law, is encoding the actual exemplification of the social structure because it's tied to the diet. And that diet is tied to the land. The land is tied into inheritance. And this is extremely important because in order to get that land that flows of milk and honey, which is an idiom for the fact that it's going to just give you the things. Milk is given from a mother to a child. The milk and the honey is the eating part, the sustenance. Honey is a superfood. Honey is a superfood. There's so many elements in honey that it's used for so many different wide range of applications as well. Your sustenance through honey, food, sustenance through milk, through liquid. These things the land will just yield and give to you. And this is based on you keeping the statutes and commandments, which is tied to the land inheritance domain, which then is tied to the foodstuffs that are in that domain that either is cultivated or that you raise via cattle, goats, and sheep. And then from there, that is tied to a compact, or that's tied to a contract with the deity, that's the covenant, and that if you obey the deity, he will give you the rains and the sustenance from the earth so that you will continuously be sustained. This did not stop just from the land. When they were exiled, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 is that he continues to allow the blessing and the curse to follow you based on obeying his voice, no matter where he has driven you in exile. So these same principles that we were doing, our ancestors were doing in the land, we are obligated to continue to perform them no matter where we are on earth. So when people examine your life, they see Torah in action. They say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Icebreaker to lead them to Torah culture. All right? Last book, and we out of here. This book is called, and this is page 158, but this book right here is Hebrew Lexical Semantics and Daily Life in Ancient Israel. What's cooking in biblical Hebrew? It uses the language in order to determine the food preparation, distribution, consumption, and disposal of foods, just by going into the language. Okay, let me go to page 158. I want to show you. It uses the story of Abraham. Let me show it to y'all real quick. All right. So this right here, let me show it to y'all. All right. This has to do with Genesis chapter 12. This is really small. Let me zoom in so y'all can see. All right. In Genesis 12, again, remember, your social structure is also based on the foodstuffs in your environment. In Genesis 12, Abram and Sarai were chosen to be the instrument of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh's will in the world. They were to have offspring, to possess land, and to bless the whole world. Such a calling seems to be a direct response to the fear of humankind in chapters 1 to 11 to live according to this divine will. Now the responsibility was with one fledgling family. Okay. Now let me scroll up here. All right. In Genesis 18, then Abraham and Sarah are dwelling near the oaks of Mamre, and they were surprised by three visitors who turned out to be more than they appear. Let's go past that. Abraham, playing the good host, recognizes that he must care for these travelers. Again, hospitality, part of the culture. He offers them water for their feet, rest in the shade during the heat of the day, and a mere morsel of bread. We discover, as the ancient audience would have expected, that Abraham had no intention of providing just a meager repast. Rather, in accordance with expectation of hospitality, Abraham underestimates his own offering and then races off the prepared meal fit for the divine. Breathlessly, the reader looks on as Abraham tells Sarah to hurry and prepare 3 seahs of fine flour and mere cakes. And again, during that time, barley cakes was made for the commodores and wheat was made for those who had money and affluence. Okay, just keep that in mind. That's culture. He then runs and picks out a calf and gives it to a servant to prepare. Finally, he grabs some suitable dairy products along with the rest of the prepared food and sets it out before his guests, all at an absurd pace. We know from the backgrounds chapter that there's no way that this preparation is as quick as the narration makes it seem. We do not know exactly how long it took, but we can at least deduce some of the details. First, we must determine what is it that Abraham and Sarah are preparing. That's important. Thereafter, we can estimate the length of time needed to prepare it. Again, this is going to look to Iron Age preparation of foodstuffs, okay? The first thing that Abraham does is he gets Sarah preparing the bread. He asks her to use 3 seahs of fine flour, kama solet, in all likelihood deriving from wheat, which we have seen was considered the better alternative to barley. Living near the oaks of Mamre, Abraham and Sarah would have been in the southern hill country of what would become Judah near Hebron. This hill country with its deep gorge, steep hills, and dependable rainfall was generally well suited to fruit trees and terracing rather than to the production of grains like wheat and barley, though this could be done in small areas. Near Hebron, in particular, there was less rainfall, and therefore we can assume that Abraham and Sarah did not have vast fields of grain in their vicinity, and so they most likely dealt with traders coming from the more fertile areas closer to the coast. This book goes deeper than this. I just want to give you some insight to inspire you to go back and read it. This is where I'm currently researching, amongst other things, because I want to lecture on this, and something that's very important, because through diet and nutrition, you can understand the social structure of a community in ancient times and how that same thing is relative and can correspond to how things are today. It's important. It's important. You are identified by what you eat, even if it's subliminal, because mankind, through his development, has been epigenetically disposed and epigenetically altered based on the diet. When we were brought here from the western shores of Africa, we were given a diet that was not suitable for a dog, but we ate it and we survived. But now that we have some semblance of liberty and freedom, our diet should cater to what our ancestors ate, so we can be back in harmony with that ancestral continuity, and with that be reoriented back to the divine. And then we supplement that template with things through knowledge that the Most High has given us today, with other things to create a more adequate, moderate, and varied diet. And through the consumption of that becoming part of our halakha on how we apply things that we can now eat, we then feast and eat it. And with this meal, we stay in harmony with our social structure, and we come into covenant with the divine. Now, I'm done with that. I'm done. I know this is a lot. I'm done. So let's stop. Again, these books are available on the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. You can check it out on there, or you can email us and we'll send it to you. No problem, right? But this is a very important subject. I don't see a lot of people in our community going in. There was also nutritional deficiencies based on the diet that our ancestors had, that today, with the knowledge of that, we take that template and supplement where those deficiencies is at, because agriculturalists and pastoralists had two different types of diet. But you wouldn't know that, and that diet would affect a person's physiology, psychology, and anatomy. So unless you understand that from a deep, that's why we talk about naturopathic eating. The objective is, how do we get our people back to the Edenic state, that ideal diet, through nutrition, through exercise, and supplementation. Is deep. I don't wear this for no reason. These words, holistic synergy, are not there just for no reason. Naturopath, not just to eat, is not there for no reason. There's a purpose behind it. Remember, I told you, the purpose is designed to get you through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and help you to reach your final destination. It keeps you productive, active, and occupied, so that you will not be taken away from the cares of this world. When you don't have that, then you're going to entertain things that are outside of that. But when you do have it, nothing can shake you or move you to that which the Most High has entrusted you with. And with that, I'm done. I'm done. Let's do the giveaways and we sign it off. All right? Ace says, you only see one book through Patreon. I'm not sure what you mean through that. So you have to go to the page. You got to go to the Divine Prospect page. And then from there, you can scroll back to the various posts, and you'll see posts on different books. Or there should be a search box. You can search these books that I'm telling you about. It'll bring up the post. When you go on the post, there's a link. You click the link, and it'll give you access to the book to read it for free. All right? Even download it as well. All right? But again, read these 3 books. I'm telling you, there's a wealth of information that you probably never considered as it pertains to the lifestyle, the customs, the manners, and the culture. This is why I tell people, when they want to talk to me about ancient Israelite culture, I'm like, whoa, hold on. Are you reading this material? I need to know how invested you are in this subject matter before you try to debate me on it. I'm invested. Feet in, hand in, all in. This is the depth in which I study, because I want to make sure that I'm in alignment with Yah, and that I'm doing things appropriately, and I can save you some time and give you the shortcut, so that way you can navigate further than I can. All right. All right. Let me finish off. Let's do the giveaways. 3 giveaways. Patreon giveaway. That is for the Silver Scrolls keychain. The KHM app giveaway. That is for the cast and lot set. And then the Amazon giveaway is right here in the chat. 3 giveaways. If you have the app, you have the Patreon, and you're viewing right now, you have the ability to win all 3. This time, I'm gonna give you the ability to win all 3. Let me ask 3 questions. 3 questions, right? So the first question is, I'm gonna ask it here in the chat. Anybody who gets it first wins it. Okay. Thank you, mods, for helping out. All right. So the first person right here, that's the first question. All right. Now I'm going to do another question. It's going to be here through the app. The next question is coming through the app. The first person to answer these questions, they win. Okay, second question is sent. Now, so I sent the first question in the chat. Okay. The second question is through the app. Push notifications. Check your push notifications, or go to the app and go into the inbox section and see the question. And now the third one is going to be the one I'm going to post on Patreon right now. All right. And after this, I'm out. I got some mouthful already. Yo, Mikhail is funny, man. Oh, okay. There we go. Alexander McCaskill, you just won the Amazon gift card through the chat. All right. So that one, for you, Alexander, email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and I will email you your Amazon gift card. Okay. So that's good. So he got that one. All right, now, again, if you have the app, I sent the second question through the app, and I'm working on the one right now for the Patreon. All right? All right, let me see. All right, remember, there's a question in the app. I need somebody to answer that question. It's an open book test. The first person to get it wins. Here's the second question. I'm doing it right now on the Patreon. All right, ask some basic questions. Let me see. Thank you again, family, for the condolences. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who did the super chat. I appreciate that as well. So we already answered that question in the chat, family. I sent the question via the app, okay? And in the app, there's a question waiting. Please answer the question in the app. Answer the question in the app. And if you answer that here in the chat, put the answer to the question that I sent in the app, put it in the chat, and you will win the well, actually, I said cast and lots. You're gonna win the Silver Scrolls chain. keychain. All right. So I'm gonna wait here. There's 2 more questions. One in Patreon, and there's one in the app. All right. I'm gonna wait for you to answer it, and then I'm gonna close out the session. So far we have 1 winner, but we're waiting on 2 more people to win something. So it's up to y'all. Shout out to, while you're doing this, I'm just going to shout out some people that's here. Shout out to Aishu Cole, Jetson Silencio, The Village Faction, Dram 92 Diligence, Alexander McCaskill, Maurice Israel, Mikia Al, Bena, Yasha Rao, Chris Benya, V Brand, Mitchell Snyder, Reckless Animosity, Son of Yah Dre, Seth M, let me see, Bernard Chesley, Trey or TJ, DJ. Let's see, who else is up in here? Nisi's Pieces, Shalom. My brother Shammai is here. Ace is here. Slow Flow the God, the Souls of Our Ancestors, Mitchell Snyder. Let me see, who else is here? Sankofa John, I Am Sister, Hadashah, Remarkable Ministries in the building. Mrs. L. Noble, Donna Brown, Patrice Brady. Shalom, sis. You said you want to talk to somebody, sis? All right, sis, Patricia, call the number, 678 number, and schedule an appointment, and let's talk next Tuesday. Let's talk next Tuesday, all right? And whatever it is you need help with, I'll sort it out. All right, sis? All right, shout out to, let's see, who else is here? Shout out to Sister Tara Young in the building, Sheila Jackson, Joseph Donald, Miss B. What's going on? Shalom, shalom. I Am Rose, Donna Brown. Let's see. Adore John Balas. What's going on? Sadek Ben Israel. What's up? What's up? Let me see. Black Av in the building. And I think everybody I can see from scrolling. I'm waiting for y'all to answer the question. Y'all saying polite versus divine. Nah, what was the... I was about to say the question. Go into the app and answer look at the question. It's an open book test. I'll give you a hint. The year is 2014. I'll make it easy. 2014. That's the year for the question from the app. Now, the Patreon has another question. All right? If those of you who have the Patreon, go to the Patreon right now. It's the last post I just made. It's a question. All right? Jetson, no. That's not correct. It's in the beginning of 2020 for the question through the Patreon, the beginning of 2020. Shalom, my brother Oriyahu Ben Shem. Shalom, King. Thank you so much. Shout out to Truth More Truth. The Realness, what's going on? Risk Manager, what's up? What's up? Let me see. Risk Manager, I don't know what you're talking about in here. I have no clue. Oh, Seth, you have it correct. Seth, you got the answer correct. That's the question on the Patreon. So Seth got the question on the Patreon right. All right. Now, we're waiting on one last winner. Seth, email me, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, so we can get you your gift. All right? So, Risk Manager, I don't know who you are or what you're talking about. I have no clue. No. Remember, guys, 2014 is the year for the question I asked you through the app. 2014. You're giving me stuff from 2015. Go to 2014. All right. Shout out to Truth Seeker in the building. Shalom, Shakar, Yara Ya. What's going on? What's going on? Sister Ya'a Asantawa, daughter of Zion. What's going on? Okay, we're waiting on one person. Waiting on somebody to get a free gift. If y'all don't want the free gift in the next few minutes, then I'll just save it. But if you want the free gift, I need somebody to answer that question. All right. So congrats to Seth. He answered the question for the Patreon. To Alexander, he answered the question. Shout out to Malak Hazak in the building. What's going on? All right. Remember, family, if y'all in New York, we will be downtown tonight in Times Square around 9:30 p.m. meeting at 42nd and Broadway, and we're gonna go get dinner and eat, and we're gonna go see the other brothers out there, speak to the people out there. We're gonna have a good time. If you can make it to the meet and greet tonight, call us at 678-430-3832 or text us at 678-430-3832 or email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. The contact information is right here scrolling across the screen, and it's also at the very bottom in the description box. All right, reach out to us. All right. Let me see. Yes, Sister Lynette got it. There's our winner. So we got 3 winners. Alexander, you win the gift card. Seth, you win the casting lot set. And Sister Lynette, you win the Silver Scrolls keychain. All right, so make sure all three of y'all email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com so I can get your shipping information and I can get the gifts out to you guys. All right, thank you guys for participating. Everybody else who did not win, it's okay. We give away stuff all the time. Sign up for our Patreon. There's giveaways there. Or subscribe to this channel if you're brand new. Click that bell, hit the all notifications so you can get it every time we live. You can win a gift card or some other gift or something else, even cash giveaway that we give out on Patreon. We do cash giveaways, all right? We give back to those who give to us. Those who say here, who invest in our ministry, we take those investments allocated to the needs of the ministry, creating services, products, goods, and programs for the community, as well as poured into the scholarship aspect so I can purchase articles, books, and also get scholarship from the various conferences that I go to, various organizations that I'm a part of that I then give back to the people because I give you the data and these realms of society back to you guys so you can take it and create your own cultural autonomy from it through research and application. That's why we're here, right? So everything that's invested in the ministry goes back to the people. That's why we're here. And like I told you guys earlier, there's nothing that I don't think that I could ever do from all the things that my grandmother in her 94 years of life has done for her community. But I at least want to make a small mark if I can. I at least want to do that. And a thing that she wasn't able to do, I can now. And that is everybody that hears the voice of my sound that has attracted KHM. We're going to turn into mini versions of that and together collectively make a more indelible mark on this community so that people see us move. They see the power of Yah on this earth. And it's so much so we're going to do it. We're going to force the creator to get off his throne and come and meet us ASAP. Never forget that. The power and what you can do when you are endowed with purpose, understanding that it will navigate you through the good, bad, and ugly and bring you to your final destination. Never forget that. And if you missed that message, go to the replay, rewind this back, and enjoy. Okay? So again, family, thank everybody for the condolences. I appreciate that. Anytime I give to the people, they give to me, I give back. All right, y'all didn't know you was gonna win something coming on this show today, but you did. And if you didn't win anything else, you got the knowledge necessary to help you or to equip you to better navigate this thing called life. It is not as difficult as you think it is, but it is challenging because the challenge is to build character. It's going through the process. Always find people that's gonna struggle with you through the process instead of those who are only there to celebrate you when you get the prize. That's for somebody. Y'all will get that. Prune your circle. So that way the things that you're trying to grow can have life. Okay. All right. Anyway, family, I love y'all. Oh, my brother Jacko Black, I think you asked for the details. So we're meeting up tonight at around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Times Square, 42nd and Broadway. And then we also meet up in Harlem on Sunday for our luncheon. I didn't find an address yet, but I will give it to you. Text 678-430-3832. If you're in New York, text us 678-430-3832. Or if you have the app, go to our KHM New York chapter group. Register for the group, and everybody in the group will also get a text message based on the locations and whereabouts and time of what's going down Friday and Sunday. And don't fret if you're unable to make it because it's last minute. We will be back on March 25th doing even more powerful things and setting up our KHM New York chapter to do this work in the community like nobody's ever seen before. New York ain't never seen nothing like KHM because we're here to create autonomy for our people, wean them off the welfare state, have our own Goshen. So as Yah judges, we're building and we're so productive, we're not even aware of what's going on around us until he intervenes, gathers us, and places us back to that land flowing with milk and honey. All right? So I love your family. Thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all. And if y'all need anything from us, anybody needs anything from us, no matter where you at on God's green earth, as they say, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If we can help you, we will. Love you, family. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Peace. Shalom, and I'll see you again soon.